under party president Nitin Nabin, Smriti Irani as the National General Secretary, whilst Vasundhara Raje Scindia and Ram Madhav named National Vice Presidents. Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulating all the new office bearers. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister C. Joseph Vijay announces a waiver of crop loans up to Rs 75,000 for farmers who had obtained loans between 75,000 and 1 lakh rupees. The AIIMS Medical Board says Twisha Sharma died by suicide. Body showed no signs of physical assault. Indian Army Chief General Dheeraj Seth awarded honorary general rank of the Nepal Army. President Ramachandra Paudel confers the honorary rank, reflecting the unique military ties between the two countries. We've already told you about the Cockroach Janata Party's School THIK KARO campaign, an initiative asking citizens to visit government schools, document the basic infrastructure gaps and put those findings before the local authorities. The campaign began with CGP leader Abhijit Deepke announcing that rural children should not still be pleading for basic facilities after 80 years of independence. The idea was simple: check the school, document the problem and demand action. But as the campaign has expanded, so has the controversy around it. Case in point, Rajasthan. Because in Rajasthan, CGP announced plans to visit government schools that it says are in poor condition. And soon after that announcement, the Rajasthan government issued a circular tightening access to government schools. And under the new directions, outsiders need prior permission from the principal to enter the campus premises. Visitors have to be recorded in a register, entry-exit per se. Photography, videography, interviews, audio recording and live streaming require now written approval. The government says that the reason is child safety and privacy. The circular invokes Article 21 and the right to privacy as well as child protection guidelines. It says photographs, videos or personal information of students should not be collected or disseminated without appropriate parental consent. And on the face of it, there is a perfectly legitimate question here. Schools are not public parks. Children have a right to privacy. Nobody should be allowed to walk in a classroom just like that, film the children or live stream school activities without certain safeguards. But here's where the debate also begins. Does protecting children necessarily mean preventing outsiders from documenting the condition of the government schools? Because the Cockroach Janata Party campaign is not only about filming the children, it is asking some serious questions. It's asking volunteers to document things like broken toilets, unsafe classrooms, missing facilities. I mean, the roofs are collapsing, needless to speak of, non-functional water supply and infrastructure gaps. And Rajasthan's restrictions came just hours after CGP announced plans to inspect schools in that state. That timing has inevitably raised another question. Is this simply a child safety measure because privacy is being cited? Or could it also make independent scrutiny of government schools more and more difficult? And Rajasthan is not the only flashpoint, because we all know what happened in West Bengal's Bankura. Abdul Hafiz, he says he and his father were attacked after Abdul Hafiz filmed the condition of his old government school as part of this School THIK KARO campaign and audit. His father later died from those injuries because of the assailants, and police have registered an FIR in the case. 3 people have been arrested. Hafiz has alleged that BJP-linked local men were responsible. The BJP has come out and said that if it is its own workers and its workers are found to be involved, strict action will follow. The Cockroach Janata Party has now stepped into the matter, saying it will stand by Hafiz's family. So the campaign has moved well beyond just fixing the school. It is now raising questions about who gets to inspect public institutions, who gets to document failures, and how much scrutiny governments should be willing to face. At the same time, there is another important question. Should a political organization be conducting what is essentially a social audit of the government schools? Is this citizen accountability? Is it political mobilization? Or can it really be both? And most importantly, if the schools are in good shape, should scrutiny even be a problem? Professor C.B. Sharma, educationist, with us on the broadcast. Many thanks, Professor, for taking out the time. Advocate Anubha Srivastava Sahai, educationist and President, India-Wide Parents Association, and K. Gopika, student from the JNU, joining us on the broadcast. Yeah, since this is about the students, Gopika, I'm going to again give you, pass the baton to you right here in the opening segment. Your opening submissions here, the Rajasthan government says you can't just walk into a school. You can't, there need to be, certain safeguards in place. You can't be just walking into a classroom, filming, documenting students at length. And the school THIK KARO campaign has garnered a lot of attention on social media, needless to speak of. So what's your assessment here?
So I would like to raise two observations at the onset.
Yeah.
One is that before the school THIK KARO campaign even was launched by different political organizations, you can see that following the protest that happened in Jantar Mantar, Gen Alpha in large numbers were videographing the conditions of their school. From Rajasthan, from other parts of the country, you can see that students, young students, 5th graders, 4th graders, 7th graders were coming out with their own audit of their own schools. Several videos showed these students questioning their school administration, asking the principal whether they would be willing to send their own children into these schools and institutions where these students are being taught without any basic facility. Now, getting to the next point of it, I represent SFI. And in 2025 December, SFI had led the campaign which is School Bachao. In that, we found that several of the schools, if you look at the number of schools that have been shut down in the name of school mergers, you wouldn't believe the amount of students who are being kept away from mandatory schooling, which is a constitutional right. And this farce about protecting the privacy of students. I would like to say that the government has mandated APAR ID. Now, in policy documents, APAR ID should be allowed for a student with the consent of their parents, and it is completely a matter of choice. But in practice, if you go and ask the parents and teachers, they will tell you that APAR ID has become mandatory for all of these young students. And there is no audit of what privacy measures have the government put in place for something as crucial as the data that the students are giving in APAR ID. So when the same government then talks about and lectures you about privacy, concern for these students, then it raises the question about the timing at the onset of which such restrictions are coming in place. Taking an audit of school does not mean that you're going in and videographing the children without their consent. It means you're taking an audit of the infrastructural facilities that the school is mandated to avail to the students, and the lack of it is being videographed and circulated, and auditing is being done. And if the school does not have a ceiling in place, if the schools do not have a washroom where the students can go, if the principal is found in a drunkard state, not even able to teach the students, then should this not be disseminated to the public, and should auditing not be done? So if the government is concerned about the privacy, then I think they should do an audit of themselves. They should publish figures that where all such facilities, infrastructure, how many schools have shut down in the pretext of mergers, and what has been the condition of our primary education system post the new education policy. So this audit the government should do from their own past.
All right. Some real stark questions that you've asked right here at the onset, Gopika. Professor Sharma, you see, strong reactions coming there from the student body, and rightly so as well, because many people out there now questioning the timing of the Rajasthan circular, and also suggesting whether they're fearing scrutiny or not? And why mustn't somebody ask that? Because like Gopika pointed out, to go inside to tell the world how dilapidated our schools actually are, what's wrong in that? But I must ask you, because this is a gray area, this becomes about where privacy ends and where parental or public accountability actually begins. And where do you stand on that particular point?
Well, look, the questions being raised are very genuine. And what I believe is that if these youngest students are taking up these issues and they want audit on this, or they want this condition of schools to be better or change, I think there's nothing wrong about it. We have been asking the same questions for decades. Look, because the student from JNU is raising these issues, I will raise some policy issues. The school education is directly under the government. So the government, the Minister for Education, is directly responsible for the condition of school. Just as in Rajasthan, the Minister for Education is responsible, the Minister in Kerala is responsible, the Minister in Tamil Nadu is responsible. And let me give you an example of Chhattisgarh. Chhattisgarh, during the COVID, the Minister for Education, School Education, decided that we'll give the question paper and answer sheet to the students to take home and write the answer in 7 days and deposit it to the school, and that will be assessed. Who decided it? And how can it be called an examination? There's some serious lacuna in school education, and which needs to be taken care of. We are asking that you bring school education out of the control of government, just as you have higher education. I'm not giving a certificate to the University Grants Commission that it has done very good job. It needs revamping, but at least it is not under the control of the minister, the government. As a policy, I will say the school education must come out of the government control. The Minister for Education, central government, is responsible for CBSE, NIOS, Kendriya Vidyalaya, Navodaya Vidyalaya, and every time there is something, he or she has to answer, which should not happen. One. Second question, my observation will be, we cannot let any Harry, Tom or Dick to become inspector of schools. That cannot be allowed. You have a school, somebody entered saying that I am husband of a teacher. She came and he stabbed her to death. We cannot permit this in schools. Everybody, suddenly somebody wants to go and audit a school, that cannot be done. Privacy of children, it's too late to think of it. You go to Sweden, go to Finland, and you will not be allowed to film or take a photograph of a child. That's cognizable offense. Why did we not do till now? Now you have woken to the situation. It should have happened much earlier. So schools must be very secure, sacrosanct, and I don't agree that the principal has to be scrutinized.
So, Professor, are you saying that the circular is justified with all the legalities that the circular brings about?
No. I'm not completely justifying it. What I'm saying, I have not read, so I don't know. But what I would say,
well, it invokes certain sections of the POCSO Act. It invokes sections of Article 21. It talks about the safety of the children, the privacy of the children. All of that is something that has been highlighted in that particular circular. Take permission from the principal, and only then will you be able to enter.
See, I have not read, so I'm not commenting on the circular of Rajasthan government. But as an educationist and somebody who works extensively on school education, I will have two things to mention. One is maintain the privacy of children. Their consent is important. Their parents' consent. Second is don't abuse your teachers all the time. Don't tell all the principals are drunken. And why do you send your children to school then? Don't send them to school. Take care of them in your homes. I'm for the teachers. Teachers must be respected, and teachers must be given all powers as well. If there is a
but sometimes, Professor, the situation becomes. I absolutely agree with you. I think teachers. It's a unforsaken job. How many times do we actually look back and thank our teachers? I thank all my teachers. For the very reason that I'm being able to sit here, talk to an esteemed set of panelists here. But sometimes that responsibility is taken for granted, and that is the pathetic situation that we are living in. I'm going to come back to you. Let me circle across other panelists as well. Advocate Anubha Srivastava Sahai also with us on the broadcast. Advocate, what do you think? Is this circular justified? And can one separate filming children, quote unquote, because we're talking about privacy, we're talking about all those articles that have been invoked. Can we separate filming children from filming the physical condition of the school, the toilets, the classrooms? Because if you look at the features of this campaign, the School THIK KARO campaign, and what all Gen Alpha has been doing before, just like Gopika pointed out, I mean, it's really credible. Kudos to the Gen Alpha and kudos to this campaign as well. It's so simple, but we needed that push, and now we're doing it.
Yes, thank you for having me on this show, and I really appreciate the way our Gen Z and Gen Alpha have taken a campaign. They have started a campaign, School THIK KARO. It's a very good campaign, but see, at the same time, you have to maintain, you have to follow some rules and regulations. As far as filming is concerned, you can definitely take permission from the principal. Once the school gets over, then you can get inside the school and take the pictures and everything. I will give you one example. Last year, I don't remember the year, NCRT visited some school when Kejriwal was in power in Delhi, and they did not allow NCRT officials to enter the government schools to inspect, to conduct inspection. So this is the status. So just imagine. So even in, be it any state, Haryana or Rajasthan or Maharashtra, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, any state, we know. I am from a government school. We have studied in government school, but we feel very bad because the condition of the schools are so bad that nobody wants to send their children to school. So this is a very good campaign. My only suggestion to our co-panelist and maybe whosoever has taken this campaign, we have been following up. We have been requesting government to improve the quality of education and infrastructure in government-run schools, which is not happening. Now our Gen Zs and Gen Alpha have taken a stand and they have started this movement. We all should come forward and support them. At the same time, they should also ensure that if they want to film, if they want to escalate any issue, they can definitely go inside the school, take permission. And at the same time, what is the education officer doing? He has the suo motu power to conduct inspection of each and every school under RT. What he has done, he has not done. This means that if the condition is very poor, that means the education department is not working. Remove those officials. They should be held accountable, and whatever infrastructure is going to be developed, or that should be taken from their salary. The salary should be deducted for the conditions of these particular schools, which are in a very bad condition.
Okay.
Government should come up with circular and take action against the education officers now. Why they are not doing? Start this campaign.
That is the operative point, because you see, we needed a cockroach Janata Party to come in and push the government to do what their actual job was in the first place, with all the caveats in place, all the the limitations that are justified, not justified. That's a completely different.
We should feel ashamed that this is what is the status of our school. In our country.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, look at some of the visuals that we have here, and we've tried to maintain on-air hygiene. Not everything that's doing the rounds on social media can be put on television, but we've tried our best to put those visuals out there.
Yeah, one more point I would like to highlight, that it is mandatory to have a SMC. So SMC in each and every school, government school management committee, which consists of parent representative and teachers.
Okay.
Where are those committees? What are they doing? It's their responsibility also to conduct inspection of each and every school.
Gen Alpha is on the streets in Lucknow because teachers are not coming. People are skipping through broken dams just to get to school. Where will these committees, be constituted from, ma'am? There's such a dearth of, teachers out there. And those that are in the position and in the capacity have the responsibility of quote-unquote teaching, sometimes take that job for granted, which is the shameful reality that we have to deal with.
I support this campaign. This campaign, and I would request that, yes, definitely School THIK KARO campaign should run. But at the same time, please follow the rules and regulations.
So it's going to be a balancing act. It's going to be a balancing act. Gopika, what do you say here? We've gone around the board once. This circular from Rajasthan, do you think it's going to become a precedent in terms of becoming a hurdle to this entire campaign? Because this is just one state. The call is for all the other states. This campaign or not, I'm talking about citizen auditing. Do you think this circular will act as a precedent? And why I'm asking you that is because we know what happened in Bankura. We know the violence that took place over there. And it has turned a little bit political as well, this entire campaign.
Absolutely. The way there was a mob lynching of a supporter of the campaign, a person who was conducting the audit of schools nearby their home, their father was lynched by a mob of allegedly BJP supporters. And this raises serious concern for the safety and security of those people who really care about the education system of the country. And there were mentions of Kerala from the other panelists. And as a person who come from the state, I can testify the fact that if a government really wants, the public education sector can be improved, students can be involved, and for the first time, parents were urging their children to go to public schools rather than opt for private schools. So this is not something that the government cannot do if they have a will to do, that is to improve the campaign. And regardless of the notices, like I said at the onset of the discussion, we have to have faith in the strength that the Gen Alpha has shown before the official announcement of the campaign. Regardless of cameras coming in from outside, the Gen Alpha will come out and speak up about the conditions that they have been put through in their schools. There are students coming out, there are videos circulating where tribal students have alleged that they were being treated as servants in the homes of their principal and teachers. And with all due respect to the educators who really care about the futures of the student, but there is also another reality of the country where there are people who are not taking into account the physical, mental well-being of the students that they are teaching.
Yeah.
And once there is a spark, which was seen in Jantar Mantar, it quickly catches the the
The national
interest as
imagination.
well. Exactly. It captures the imagination of the citizens of the country. If Jantar Mantar was able to do that for the Gen Zs, I think the School THIK KARO campaign will be able to do that for the Gen Alpha. And once that imagination has been sparked and once the campaign has started, any such a notice will only backfire to the government because that will bring more scrutiny. If you try to stop one audit from happening in one school, there'll be different ways in which we will problem solve and try to find a way to audit the schools.
Okay.
As much as you try to push under the carpet the faults of your administration and the government, more will come out. We will dig out more dirt that you are trying
Yeah,
to hide.
no matter
And
how
this
much you,
saga,
shove things under the carpet, they call it a carpet bomb for a reason. It will blow up one day or another. Professor Sharma, you spoke about how we need to bring education out of the purview of the government. That is, a policy reform suggestion, and it's duly noted. But talking about this campaign here, talking about citizens auditing, parents auditing, even the teachers themselves, the students themselves, the Gen Alpha, the Gen Z, all of them auditing the institutions that are disseminating education. What do you think is a genuinely effective school audit system? What does it look like? One where parents, the government, the civil society can all participate together, because regardless of what we do here, what we talk about here, I'm still reminding the viewers about the latest visuals that have gone viral. Children skipping through a broken dam, wading through waist-deep water, all of this just to get to school, protesting at the authorities' door because there are just no teachers coming to their classroom for the last 6 months.
I'm all for reforms in schools. Our schools are in very bad shape, and that's the same. After 80 years of independence, if we have not been able to provide equal playing field to all students, rich or poor, we have failed as a nation. So schools need reform. I have been talking about reforms in schools and for a long, long time, many decades. But I'm not going to accept that every Harry, Tom or Dick will become an inspector of school. This we cannot be permit. One. Two, don't demoralize your teachers. Don't all say all the teachers are drunken. All the teachers don't teach. Go to Tamil Nadu and see what government did there. They had an iron curtain of schools, and they said to teachers, you have to pass all. Give them 80-90% so that they get into school. Don't permit also the governments to do that. So what I'm saying is, do definitely do this scrutiny, but don't say that everybody and nobody's are now free to walk into the school and do an audit who don't understand education. Education is not something which everybody can handle. So I would say Policy reforms are necessary. We have policy paralysis in the school education, which must be taken care of. If you take care of that, if you make robust policies, your schools will automatically run well. You have a National Assessment and Accreditation Council for Higher Education, NAC. Where do you have the accrediting and assessing body for schools? You don't have any. So what I'm saying is, don't just make it a free for all in the country.
Okay, we hear you.
You will have very difficult time managing if all your teachers stop teaching.
It's a recipe for chaos. I agree. It's a recipe for chaos. So there needs to be strict vigil as to who comes and scrutinizes, but we can't simply clamp down on this scrutiny as well. So which is why I said this is going to be a balancing act. I've got a very important debate that's coming right on the other side of this, short breather. Advocate Sahai, before I do that, I'm going to give you the final say here. Final 20 seconds. We understand that you're all for this campaign and you really support this campaign, but you also don't want anybody to come in. Student privacy and our children's privacy is also important. Anything that you want to add there? Final 20-30 seconds here, ma'am.
No, see, no, the only thing is that government has all the powers. If it's high time that they should now start focusing on improving the education quality. It's not only the infrastructure. Infrastructure, even when we were in school, was not very good. It was very bad. But quality of education was very good. So government should start focusing on quality of education, and at the same time infrastructure also they should improve.
Okay.
And start adopting the schools which are which they have shut down. They can run those schools in PPP model, because now education has become unaffordable. Even middle class people cannot afford education in private schools. It is very difficult. So we have to ensure that from KG to PG we should get affordable education. Then only our country will progress. Otherwise, it is very difficult now. So government schools definitely they have to improve. They should improve the quality of education,
I think we leave it at that particular point, because a campaign that began with a simple demand, fix our government schools, School THIK KARO, has now opened up a much bigger debate. Who gets to scrutinize public institutions, and where does accountability meet the politics? And the question that we started out with, maybe the Rajasthan government is a little bit on the back foot, but that circular also stands a little bit vindicated, a little bit justified, because not everybody can come in and open their cameras. Just like Professor Sharma was telling us, somebody walks in and then they end up stopped. Yeah, exactly. So the questions around access, transparency, and of course the Bankura case, they're far from over. Many thanks to my panelists. Gopika, Professor Sharma, Advocate Sahai, many thanks for taking on the time and speaking to us here on News9. A quick commercial breather here. My guests are waiting on the other side. Many thanks for patiently waiting. The E20 debate is back. You've got the Chief Economic Advisor who's come now and back for E10 for the older vehicles. We're going to decode that. Don't go anywhere.
लास्ट टाइम कश्मीर गई थी ना, वहाँ खाया शहद, पर उसके लिए कश्मीर जाना पड़ेगा। अरे कश्मीर क्यों जाना, कश्मीर ही यहाँ आ गया।
सुंदर वादियों में महकती खुशबू और रंग बिरंगे फूल, इनमें से शहद निकाल कर जमा किया जाता है असली शहद, लायन कश्मीर हनी।
असली शहद, असली स्वाद।
A single street in Belfast, sudden act of violence, and within hours, a city was pulled into chaos. What began as a stabbing has now ignited nights of unrest across Northern Ireland. Fresh unrest has erupted in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir with large-scale protests. As the guns fall silent in the Iran war, Donald Trump has opened a new diplomatic front in the West Asia. Not with missiles, not with sanctions, but with a bold demand. Uganda has closed its border with the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo with immediate effect.
India's ethanol debate has just moved beyond the question of engine damage and mileage. The big intervention comes from Chief Economic Advisor V. Anantha Nageswaran, who has made a case for bringing ethanol 10, E10 petrol back for the older vehicles, whilst allowing the newer, the compatible vehicles to continue with the E20 blend. And the argument is not that E20 is destroying the engine. In fact, the evidence cited by the CEA pushes back some of those more extreme claims that are circulating online. So that's not what this show is about. Ethanol has lower energy content than petrol. So E20 can mean an estimated 6 to 7% energy penalty, but the much repeated claim that E20 causes a 30% damage loss or a mileage loss is not supported by the evidence that has been cited. Testing in India and abroad has also not established widespread engine damage from E20 blend. But there is a genuine problem. India's older vehicle fleet. The CEA estimates that around 75 to 80 million two-wheelers were built for lower ethanol blends. Many of these are older pre-BS4 vehicles using carburetor technology. These engines may struggle to compensate for ethanol's additional oxygen, whilst older rubber seals and fuel system components may also be less compatible with higher ethanol blends. So the proposal is fairly simple. Bring E10 back at the pump for older vehicles, whilst E20 continues for newer vehicles. But then comes the much bigger question than this. How far should India take ethanol blending? The debate becomes particularly important if India considers moving beyond E20 towards, let's say, blends like E27 or E30. More ethanol means more feedstock. And that brings us directly to the food versus fuel question. Maize now accounts for roughly half of India's ethanol feedstock, whilst grains together account for nearly 2/3. More demand for ethanol could influence what farmers grow and potentially put maize in competition with crops such as soybean, groundnut and mustard. And there is also the water cost, the water question. The concern is not simply how much water a crop uses, but where that water comes from. Rainfall or so-called green water is different from water drawn from rivers and groundwater. And sugarcane cultivation is already water-stressed parts of Maharashtra and Karnataka, makes that distinction particularly important. So tonight, the question isn't simply E20 versus E10. It's about the larger trade-off between energy security, consumer costs, farmers' incomes, food security, land, water, and the environment. The CEA's argument is essentially make the reversible decisions first, bring back E10 for older vehicles, and be more cautious about irreversible changes to cropping patterns and land and water use. Let's open this up. Vinkesh Gulati, Vice President, Automotive Skills Development Council. Many thanks, sir, for patiently waiting. My apologies. Professor Bijon Misra, Consumer Affairs Expert. Many thanks, Professor, for taking out the time. You see, Mr. Gulati, first and foremost, let's settle the immediate consumer question first. How serious is the E20 compatibility issue for the older vehicles now that the Chief Economic Advisor has come out and said you can retrofit, but you can't retrofit parts in 70 to 85 million two-wheelers out there, and that too overnight. So there is a case for E10 here, isn't it?
So frankly, I don't, first thanks for inviting me. I don't deny what they have said, but we should understand this statement should have come at least 2 to 3, 5 years back, not today. 10% ethanol, government started blending in 21-22, which is 5 years before. Whatever has happened in 5 years has already seen. And as dealers, as automobile expert and people, we haven't seen so much complaints coming from normal customers about these O-rings and rubber parts. No doubt, it has increased. I'm not saying that. But to quantify, it is a very small percentage of old vehicles which have faced this problem. And this is not today. Like I told you, it is 21 to 22, 10%, 22 to 23, 12.1%, 23 to 24, it came to 14.6%, 24 to 25, it was 19.2. So practically, it was only a difference of 0.8% for the past 1 year. And this creation of E20 and all that, I feel somewhere where the government wanted to shift from E20 to 25 or 27, That is where this whole discussion
I agree,
started.
sir. I'm just here trying to understand that, for the viewer out there that probably has a pre-BS4 two-wheeler with a carburetor technology that is not designed to take in the extra oxygen that is going to come with E20, how the engines are going to get more hotter. And the PIB fact check, we've done specific shows on that as well, how this did not happen overnight. The blend has been happening for, a period of time. This is about a little bit more than a decade or so. But what do they make of this particular answer? This is a very educated response here, sir. But what does the person who has a pre-BS4 two-wheeler with a carburetor design, what do they do with this information now?
Very frankly, as of today, I don't feel there is such a big problem. No doubt, there'll be an effect. If your average service cost maybe is X, your average service cost will increase by 10%. If your fuel efficiency is X, it will go down by 3 to 7%. That is the maximum problem which you can face because of this. Ethanol has those water substance. It has that hygroscopic material. Even if it is E10 or E20, it will be similar for same products. The fuel line will still get affected by E10 or E20. There is no difference. No doubt, high percentage will affect faster, but it shouldn't. And we are seeing it for long times. As dealers, there are not many complaints coming from the customers. And be very assured, engine doesn't get affected. If you are getting your vehicle serviced properly, you are checking your fuel line properly, you are getting fuel from a proper petrol pump, and you are not susceptible to adulterated fuel, I don't feel there is another problem except for your maintenance cost going.
I don't disagree with you again here, Mr. Gulati. But the thing is that your answer had about 3 ifs and 2 buts as well. And that's the problem here, because not everybody has the time to keep their cars and their their vehicles in check, which is of course the consumer's problem. It's not the manufacturer's problem. But I'm going to come back to you, Professor Misra. What's your take here? Do you agree? Do you concur with what Mr. Gulati is telling us? It's an educated response. It's a one that is creating awareness. But I do want your opinion and to shift this discussion towards the larger food versus fuel trade-off, because we've got bhutta, we've got ganna, we've got sugarcane, we've got maize. All of that is equally important. The competition with the farmers' crops.
You see, Kabir, I was dying to respond. See, what I want to tell you is not a single citizen, an Indian, would not think in favor of India and India's growth and ensuring that we all participate in that growth. Let's be very clear on that. But the service provider has to give a guarantee. You can't keep changing your standard without even the knowledge of the consumer. The consumer doesn't even come to know what kind of a fuel is getting into the tank. Why don't you make the system transparent? I want to know what is the quality of that fuel which is getting into my tank. I want to know that. Is it as per standard? Nobody tells me that as a consumer. I pay full. I pay whatever the government is demanding, or whatever the service provider is demanding, or whatever is that market price so-called is being burdened on us. You see, what I want to say in brief, Kabir, is there has to be a lot of transparency, accountability, trust, which has to be built in. Give a guarantee. All what my panel members said, please give it in writing and give a guarantee to the citizens that it will not be more than this, less than this, more than that. It will be like this, like that. Give it in writing, please. I don't want to get into a litigation. Tomorrow, I don't want to get into a litigation because out of my hard-earned money, I bought that vehicle and I'm using it and it has been servicing me. And then suddenly you think of the country and you start changing the standard. That's fine.
Yeah.
Assure the quality. At the user end, you assure the quality. Are the petrol pumps or the gas stations giving that standard of fuel which we deserve to get out of the money which we are paying? And if something goes wrong, is there a guarantee given to us as a consumer? So that I don't go into litigation. I don't go into any kind of a dispute. I don't want to get into a dispute. I heard my panel member saying we are getting few complaints. Please quantify it. I need a data. to believe. Don't
Okay,
say fear.
okay. We hear you, Professor Mishra. I'm going to take that same question to Mr. Gulati here as well. And Mr. Gulati, you see, there is a lack of transparency. You yourself began the opening submission by saying that, these questions should have happened or these statements should have come 5 years, back in time. But given what we're dealing with right now, E20 and the nationwide rollout is happening as we speak. If more maize and other grains are diverted towards ethanol, what will that mean for food prices? What will then that mean for cooking oil? How will that ultimately impact the consumer? You look at all the ethanol blending processes, they say the CEA has raised the issue of water, particularly the blue water that is drawn from the groundwater, the rivers and the canals. There is a water cost, there is a food cost versus this energy cost. So in the garb of offsetting our energy security and the costs that come with it, I think we're creating more problems for us in the future.
I don't deny that. See, very frankly, whenever such transitions happen, such issues do crop up. And if you remember, originally we had talked about how sugarcane can be used for biofuel.
Yeah.
And then rice husk and all those things can be used. As the demand has increased, now the farmers are finding better price in ethanol or methanol. And that is why they are shifting all their, like you said, maize and rice and this, which may not be the right approach. I feel the sugarcane or the husk or even what the waste material we were originally planning to use as biofuel should have been, but seeing the current demand, there has been some changes, and I agree to you. Fuel versus food is not the right discussion. Food always has to be the priority for
Absolutely.
India. No doubt, we as India have to grow, and ethanol blending saves us from a lot of things, not even fuel import, but also from the environment and the NOx levels going down. So it is no doubt as a progressive step, but a progressive step which creates another problem. Being an agricultural country, if we can support balance, be a good balance, it will be better for this.
Okay. Professor Mishra, I'm going to give you the final say on the show over here, because I do agree with some of the points that you're making. But now that we're here, it seems like the government is not going to take it back. The chief economic advisor talking about E10, which is going to give way to more confusion at the petrol pumps. And then we have the food security angle to all of this. But the prime question that still goes unanswered is that if there are millions of older vehicles still plying on the road, who should bear the cost of retrofitting them now?
Naturally, I would expect as a consumer, the service provider who is making profit should be able to balance that. Whoever is making profit needs to ensure that they pay out of that profit to take care of the consumer at the end of the day. There should be a fund created out of the fuel which is being, marketed. That you take so much of cess, this tax, that tax from the consumer. Now, why don't you take a tax to ensure that the consumer is protected from litigation, from any kind of a hazard which happens or any kind of a catastrophe which takes place, due to the fuel. So there has to be some kind of a guarantee. And as I am saying this, I'm talking because we have good laws in our country which protects the consumer. But I don't want to go for litigation, for heaven's sake. We have an authority called Central Consumer Protection Authority, which is supposed to go on my behalf to litigate, but they never go and litigate. They leave it to the consumer to go and litigate. That's not fair. That is not fair. I mean, the litigation should be done by the government against the service providers. If they have failed to give that standard, or if they have failed to give that assurance or guarantee which they have been told to give.
Yeah.
Simple. I'm not talking rocket science. I'm talking simple mechanisms which protects the consumer, and this is being done globally.
Yeah. I absolutely understand where you're coming from here. So, we started out with the mileage and engine damage debate. There is still no clarity on that, at least not, crystal clarity. But now we've moved beyond that. It started with mileage and engine concerns, but the bigger question is now what is going to come next? People are already talking about E27, E30, E10 versus E20. We don't even have a clear winner on that particular front. Fuel versus food, energy security or agricultural security. I mean, all of us collectively now have to decide how far we really want to take this ethanol experiment, and is this going to be as lackadaisical as this has been right now? Because my car and gas casket says no E20, yet I have to pump that down its throat, and only I know how I feel whilst I'm doing that. So, let's hope for good sense to prevail on this particular front as well. If the CEA says that we should mull going back to E10, there might be some weightage to that aspect. Professor Misra, thank you again, sir, for bringing this into perspective, putting this into perspective. And Mr. Vinkesh Gulati, ladies and gentlemen, many thanks, Mr. Gulati. You are always, welcomed here on News 9 with your educated responses and insights. Many thanks. All right, then, before we wrap up this segment of In Your Interest, we've got an exclusive conversation that's lined up for you. We've been talking about the food safety crackdowns, be it Bengaluru, be it the national capital, be it the clubs in Mumbai, be it Maharashtra. And when we talk about Maharashtra, one name has become the key point of all of this. Maharashtra's food safety raids have made headlines. Expired products, unhygienic kitchens, unsafe practices and actions against establishments. But is this really just a story about raids, or is it a much bigger story about public health, preventable disease and mortality? And that is the question at the heart of a very interesting opinion piece titled "The Maha Raids, Not So Much a Tale of Morality as Mortality." The argument takes us beyond the immediate headlines, beyond who was caught, what was seized and who was penalized, and asks a larger question. What happens when public health risks are allowed to accumulate until they become a crisis? And that question becomes particularly powerful because of the person making this argument. Our guest is Urvashi Prasad, former director at Niti Aayog, a public policy professional and a prominent voice on health and development. Many thanks, Urvashi ji, for taking on the time. She's also speaking from a deeply personal experience. I beg your pardon here. Urvashi is a stage 4 lung cancer survivor who has never smoked, and her own experience has made her an outspoken advocate on air pollution and public health. So today, let's try to connect the dots, attempt to, and we have the right voice for it. Many thanks again, Urvashi ji, for that. Are raids enough to change behavior? Where does enforcement end and prevention begin? Are we looking at food safety too narrowly? And why do public health interventions often become reactive rather than preventive? And of course, when we talk about mortality, are we paying enough attention to the environmental and systemic risks that are around us? Welcome to this conversation here, ma'am. I do know about, your healthcare center. You're a founder of Pavan, a great initiative on that particular front as well. As a public health professional, as a former director at Niti Aayog, your headline is quite provocative. Not so much a tale of morality as mortality. Let's decode that quickly, and then we can go in deeper and further.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Kabir, firstly for taking this up and for having me on your show. I think the title really of my article stems from the fact that we now have a whole wealth of evidence which shows that environmental risk factors, which includes the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, have a very direct connection to disease and indeed to death. And not just non-communicable disease, because I think we commonly think that you might get, a respiratory infection, or, you might eat something which gives you a gastrointestinal infection. But actually, a big chunk of this morbidity and mortality is now linked to non-communicable diseases. So whether it's cancer or heart disease or diabetes or mental health conditions. And I think that evidence is now really very, very strong, unquestionable. What we need is to move from that evidence to policy. And I think that is very, very important. And I think regulation is obviously a part of it.
Yeah.
Whatever standards we have, ensuring that those are adhered to, they are enforced. I think that is great work that is happening currently in Maharashtra, as we are seeing. But a lot of it is also about behavior change, about generally making people aware that health.
Ma'am, when you look at the Maharashtra raids, what do you think they get right, and what do you think are areas where they fall short as a public health, quote unquote, public health intervention?
I think, see, the biggest thing that actually I feel they have done is to bring this into the eyes of people. Because otherwise, we've all been kind of going to these outlets. We might have been having pizzas from somewhere or going to some other restaurants. And the good thing is, this is not discriminating, whether it's whether you are a high level kind of restaurant or outlet, or whether you're a smaller player in your private sector or government. So I think the biggest kind of service that this has done is beyond just the actual raid and getting these establishments to improve their food safety. That's of course the primary purpose, but I think co-opting citizens
Yeah.
and making people a part of this movement, where people are now taking photographs saying, we want to report this to Mr. Munde. I think that is the real success of this movement, and we need to create that behavioral shift in people, because only then can it sustain beyond an
Yeah.
individual officer.
That was a very interesting part of your opinion piece. Tukaram Munde, that's become almost synonymous with aggressive enforcement. Is visible enforcement actually necessary to change behavior, or can it sometimes become enforcement just for enforcement's sake?
So I think, I mean, if you have your system running consistently, then you might not need to do 1,000 raids in 1 month or whatever, right? That he's had to do. He's probably had to do it because a lot of this was not done before. If you have a good system up and running on an ongoing basis, this doesn't even need to make it to the news, because this is work that
Yeah.
we should be doing every single day, right? Our regulators
A
should be
rapturous
doing this
applause
every
at one of
single
one of those events that happened. I mean, people were already criticizing that on social media, saying it's an IS officer that's doing their job, and people are clapping and applauding for an IS officer for carrying out their job.
No, that's right. And actually, if all our officers were to just do their jobs, I think there's a lot of power which is already vested in them. And if they
Yeah.
use it for the right reasons, then actually it doesn't need to be headlines. But because it is not happening, we have to commend this particular
Yeah.
officer who has really gone against the tide, I would
Absolutely.
say, in highlighting this issue. Yeah.
Absolutely. Ma'am, you see, if you're comfortable sharing this, we know about your, cancer survivor journey, despite never having smoked. And how did that experience change the way that you particularly look at environmental risks? You've done so much when it comes to public health, particularly air pollution. I remember having that conversation with you as well in Connaught Place, and the idea of preventable mortality.
Yeah, so again, air pollution is something that we have enough and more evidence now to say that even in a perfectly healthy individual who doesn't otherwise have any risk factors, like in my case, no smoking, I was in my mid-30s, very fit and active otherwise, even in such a person, and no genetic history as well, air pollution can trigger certain drivers of disease. In the case of cancer, we call them as oncogenes, which can get
Yeah.
triggered. And this is happening more and more in young people now. And remember, we're a country of young people.
Yep.
The demographic dividend means a lot for us. So I think we need to really take this very seriously, especially in our high risk urban centers where air pollution is really, at its peak and crossing all sorts of levels at several times in the year. And I think we need a public campaign, a mass movement around this, because
I
it's
agree.
not like we don't know the solutions in the policy space. We do. But somewhere for that urgency to come in, we need people to make this a mass movement. And I hope the young
We're
people
too
in
slow
this
on our
country,
feet. It's too lackadaisical.
Yeah.
We take it for
Yeah.
granted all the time. I'm asking you this question because I'm a cancer survivor myself. And when you go through something like that, you start looking at risk, quote unquote, very differently. I've completely run out of time here, but I'll give you the final 30 seconds here, ma'am, to close this exclusive conversation. If you could change one thing about India's approach to public health, what would that be?
Yeah, I think let's not wait to fall sick. Let's not think that health is hospitals. Health is prevention. Health is wellness. So I think if we can shift our mindsets, a lot of the solutions will follow from there.
Expired food is not just about compliance failure. When unsafe food reaches a hospital, a hotel, an everyday kitchen, I mean, the time is nigh. The consequences can be far more serious. Food safety is ultimately about one thing, that is protecting lives. It has to be about public health as well. Urging all my viewers to check that opinion piece out as well. I'm going to share a little link on our, Mediaverse as well. Urvashi Prasad, many thanks, ma'am, for taking out the time and speaking to us here on News9. All right, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of In Your Interest. We're going to catch you again tomorrow. Many thanks for watching. It all began on the internet as an online satirical political campaign.
India is also witnessing a Gen Z protest. They want the education minister Dharmendra Pradhan to resign.